I walked into my parents' house wearing the wedding dress I'd had custom made. Riley twirled under the chandelier, champagne flute in hand, surrounded by people clapping like she just cured cancer. She saw me standing there and smiled like nothing was wrong, like this was just another fun little story for her to post online. 3 weeks earlier, everything was still intact. February in Santa Fe was cold, but peaceful, the kind of quiet that wrapped around your ribs and held you gently. Elliot and I were finally planning the life we wanted. He was steady, thoughtful, an architect with rough hands and a soft voice. He never raised his voice, never interrupted me when I spoke, and looked at me like I was the most interesting part of every room. We got engaged in December in private. No big announcements, no Instagram posts, just a wood-carved ring, 2 mugs of hot cocoa, and the desert sun setting behind the cliffs. Our wedding was set for May 20th. Small, meaningful, nothing flashy. Just friends, students, colleagues, and the art gallery where we met. Galileo Gallery, tucked between 2 adobe buildings and filled with imperfect beauty. I'd sent the invites. I'd confirmed the string quartet. I even had my dress, made by a former student, hand-stitched with olive branch embroidery, because Elliot said I reminded him of quiet resilience. It was all coming together, until Riley called. She said she had big news, and insisted on a family dinner. I should have known. When I walked in, I immediately saw the banner. She said yes. Balloons, a giant cake, our mother recording everything on her phone. Dad was opening champagne. Riley stood in the center of it all, glowing in a white cocktail dress, holding hands with a man I barely knew. Everyone, she announced, Jasper and I are getting married. I froze. We all had. The man had only been in the picture for 6 months, flashy, smug, always talking about his investment portfolio, like it was his personality. May 20th, she continued, beaming. Isn't that wild? Meant to be. I looked at her, then at my parents. No one said a word. That's my wedding day, I finally said. Riley laughed. Yeah, I know. But, you didn't trademark it, right? Besides, yours is just a tiny ceremony. Ours is going to be an event. We're doing it at our Lindo resort. Jasper's uncle got us the ballroom. I waited for someone, anyone, to speak up. To say this wasn't okay. My father just shrugged. It makes sense, Lena. Riley's wedding is going to have more people, more family, more media coverage. My mother added, you can just move yours to the following weekend. It's not like it'll matter. Yours is more personal anyway. I felt like I was watching a car crash in slow motion and couldn't move. My heart was pounding, my throat dry. I'm not rescheduling, I said quietly. Riley's smile slipped. Why are you being so selfish? I stood there for another few seconds, taking it all in. The decorations, the cameras, the fact that no one saw a problem with this. Then I picked up my coat and left. My mother called after me. Think about the family, sweetheart. But I didn't look back. Not this time. It was a Thursday morning when the call came. I was at my office on campus, grading midterm design portfolios with a cold cup of coffee beside me when my phone buzzed. Hi, this is Kara from Galileo Gallery. I'm really sorry to call like this. I sat up. What's wrong? There was a pause. We've had a change in booking for May 20th. The space has been re-reserved. I blinked. No, that's not possible. That date's been ours for over a year. I know. I double-checked the records. The new reservation was made in person yesterday under Riley Caldwell. I didn't even hear the rest. Everything around me stopped. The hum of the fluorescent lights, the wind tapping on my window. I was staring at the same name that had shared my childhood, my birthday cakes, my secrets, now printed across a contract that used to belong to me. Riley hadn't just taken my date. She'd taken our place, the space Elliot and I had built a story around. The place where he first kissed me by a sculpture of shattered glass. The only place that felt like us. I hung up the phone without saying goodbye and just sat there, numb. When I told Elliot that evening, he didn't flinch. He sat beside me on the worn couch, took my hand, and let me speak. I told him everything, how they brushed me off, how Riley smiled like a victor, how my own mother said, "It's just a venue." And he just nodded, like he already knew this wound ran deeper than logistics. The next day, I drove to my parents' house, not to ask for help, but to see if there was even a shred of decency left in them. I didn't get past the second sentence. "You should have finalized your deposit earlier," Dad said, without looking up from his newspaper. I did. She outbid me. "Well," he replied, folding the paper, "you can't be surprised. Riley's wedding is going to be much larger. More exposure. It's good for the family." The family. That word kept echoing like a curse. Mom didn't even fake concern. "It's not worth all this drama, Lena. It's just a space. Don't let this ruin your relationship with your sister." I looked at her. She stole it. "She's excited," she said, like that excused everything. Be the bigger person. I had heard that phrase too many times in my life. Be the bigger person when Riley got into trouble at school, and I had to cover for her. Be the bigger person when she crashed my car at 19 and never paid me back. Be the bigger person when Mom said she wished both her daughters had turned out more like Riley. Always the bigger person. Always the shadow. I left without another word. That night, I deleted the wedding board I'd been building for 14 months. I shut down the Pinterest folders. I canceled the florist. I folded my dress back into its garment bag and zipped it up like I was sealing away a version of myself that no longer fit. Then I told Elliot I don't want to do this anymore. He looked up from his sketch pad. "Do what?" "Pretend everything's fine. Pretend that I'm okay being erased." He didn't speak right away. He simply closed the sketch pad, stood, grabbed his keys, and said, "Come with me." I followed him without question, unsure if I was running away or finally waking up. We drove in silence. It was almost 7 p.m. when Elliot turned onto Highway 285, away from the city lights. The desert stretched out beside us like a forgotten canvas, brushes of lavender sky fading into soft gold dirt. I didn't ask where we were going. I didn't care. I was exhausted, not just tired, hollow. I had been holding up too many things for too many people for too many years. And now, the one thing that was supposed to be ours had been stripped from me like it never mattered. We drove another 20 minutes into Tessouk Hills before he slowed at an unmarked turn. A tall, wrought iron gate stood ahead, half covered in ivy. A security camera clicked. The gate opened. I turned to him. "Where are we?" He didn't answer, just kept driving. We rolled through a winding gravel road surrounded by juniper trees and wild desert blooms, until a structure appeared, low, long, and made entirely of glass and stone. It shimmered in the fading light, as if it had been carved from the land itself. A private estate, a work of art. I sat up straighter. "Elliot, whose place is this?" He finally looked at me. "I designed it." "You designed it?" He nodded. "Built it. Own it." I blinked. "What do you mean, own it?" He parked beneath a curved overhang and turned off the engine. For a moment, the car went still, like the world had held its breath. "I haven't been completely honest with you," he said. "Not because I didn't trust you, but because I've seen what happens when money enters the room." My breath caught. "I grew up differently," he continued. "Quiet family, old money, but I walked away from all of it. I hated the entitlement, the performative generosity, the way people clung to status instead of substance. So I left and started over, under my own name on my own terms. That gallery where we met, I donated that installation." He smiled, just barely. "I kept my profile low for a reason. I didn't want to be someone else's ticket or trophy. I just wanted someone who saw me. I didn't know what to say. I just stared at him, at the man I thought I knew, who apparently owned one of the most stunning private properties I had ever seen in my life. He opened the door and stepped out, then came around and opened mine. I followed him through a curved glass walkway into the heart of the estate. Light sensors flickered on, illuminating a minimalist interior. Polished concrete floors, soft leather, warm oak shelves stacked with art books, and a central atrium with a reflecting pool lit from below. "This is unbelievable," I whispered. He stopped beside the atrium and turned to me. "If you still want to get married on May 20th, Lena, this place is yours. All of it. For the wedding. For anything." My throat tightened. "You're not doing this to one-up Riley, are you?" "No," he said gently. "I'm doing this so no one can erase you again." I stood there in that silent, echoing space and felt something shift. Not just gratitude, not even love, but dignity. After all the bending, the shrinking, the swallowing of hurt, I was finally being offered something I didn't have to fight for. A place of my own, a future I could claim. I reached for his hand. "Then let's make it unforgettable." He smiled. She had no idea what was coming. The message came at 10:42 p.m. I was in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd gone from bride-to-be to a side character in someone else's show. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. "Jasper Blackwell just followed you on Instagram." That alone would have been weird. We'd barely spoken. I remembered him from a few family holidays, always talking over people, always with a drink in his hand, always more impressed with himself than anyone else was. But what followed made me sit up straight. "DM from Jasper. You deserve better than what they did to you. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen. Once. Twice. 3 times. Part of me thought it had to be a prank. Another part, a louder, more familiar part, knew exactly what this was. Riley's picture-perfect fantasy was starting to fray at the seams. Still, I didn't answer. I locked my phone and tried to go back to sleep, but the words kept echoing. "Can we talk?" The next morning, I showed Elliot the message. He didn't look surprised. "Answer him," he said simply. "What? Why?" "Because sometimes the cracks show you more than the surface ever could." So I did. I sent one word. "Me why?" His reply was almost immediate. "Jasper, because I'm not blind. I see what's happening, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm just another prop in her story." We met the next afternoon at a quiet cafe near the old plaza, one of those places with uneven tile floors, soft jazz playing in the background, and baristas who wrote poetry on paper cups. I wore sunglasses and pulled my hoodie low. He showed up looking surprisingly normal. No flashy suit, no bravado, just a man who looked like he hadn't slept in days. He sat down without saying hello and went straight to the point. "I didn't know she stole your venue." I didn't respond. "She told me you canceled it, said you were having budget issues, and pushed your wedding to the fall." I snorted. "Of course she did." He shook his head. "That was just the start. The more we planned, the more I realized this whole thing isn't a wedding, it's a brand launch. She wants a Netflix-level production, has a videographer from some reality show, a whole content calendar, a fake backstory about us meeting in Bali." I blinked. "You didn't meet in Bali." He gave me a look. "We met at a corporate retreat in Scottsdale." She said it wasn't magical enough for the narrative. I took a slow sip of coffee. "She's marketing the marriage," he muttered, "and I'm the product." That one landed. Not because I cared about Jasper, but because I understood. I had lived in Riley's shadow long enough to know what it felt like to be turned into a tool, a background player in her endless performance. He leaned in. "I also found something else. Something I think you should see." He slid a flash drive across the table. I didn't touch it. "She has a burner phone," he said, voice low. "She hides it in her makeup drawer." I caught her texting someone at 1 a.m., giggling. When I asked, she called me paranoid. "You think she's cheating?" "I don't know. But I know this, she's lying. And she's been planning this wedding like a campaign, and you're the narrative villain." I looked down at the flash drive. "What's on it?" "Screenshots. Audio. Video. She admitted she wanted your date out of spite. Said, and I quote, she can cry later. She tried to bribe your gallery coordinator. Said she wanted to crush you. My hand shook slightly as I picked it up. Why are you giving this to me? Because I'm tired of being used. And maybe I want her to see what real consequences look like. He stood up, buttoned his jacket, and paused. Whatever you're planning, I want to help. I went home that night, opened my laptop, and played the recordings. By the time they finished, Elliot had come in, holding a glass of red wine. He looked at my face and didn't even ask. He just said, "This is why we don't back down." And I believed him, because now I wasn't just fighting for a wedding anymore. I was fighting for the last shred of self-respect my family hadn't already stolen. Elliot didn't ask me what was on the flash drive. He didn't need to. He watched me sit at the kitchen table for over an hour, staring at my laptop, listening to Riley's voice over and over again. Her laugh, her little sneers, her casual cruelty. "She'll cancel," she told the gallery coordinator. "She always does. She's soft. That space should go to someone who'll actually use it." Every time I replayed that line, something inside me cracked open. I wasn't soft. I was silent. And there's a difference. That night, Elliot made 3 quiet phone calls. I didn't hear what was said. I only heard his tone, measured, calm, deliberate. The same tone I imagined he used when negotiating land rights with stubborn clients or walking contractors through a failing build. He returned to me with one simple sentence: "We start tomorrow." The next morning, our custom invitations arrived, sealed in deep green envelopes with gold foil lettering and wax seals. Elliot had commissioned them months ago, before everything happened. I never imagined we'd still be using them, but now they felt different. They felt like a declaration. Each invitation contained a private RSVP code, no website, no links, no hashtags, just a number. That number unlocked directions to Sagewind Estate, the property no one knew existed unless Elliot allowed it. The guest list? Hand-picked. Artists, curators, professors, former students who had become something, survivors of sibling betrayal, quiet women who had endured too long and now had a reason to celebrate. A week later, the rumors started. It began with a blog post on Southwest Artline, a secret wedding rumored to feature renowned architect Elliot Montgomery and a private art estate hidden in Tussock Hills. Then came the whispers in the faculty lounge. Then came the DMs. And finally, the call from Riley. 2 weeks of silence. And then suddenly, ping. "Riley, hey sis. Just wanted to let you know we're releasing our wedding trailer this weekend. Thought I'd give you a heads up since your wedding might feel a little understated in comparison." I stared at the message. My hands didn't even tremble. She wanted to bait me. I let her talk. What she didn't know was that her wedding trailer would never see the light of day. Not after what happened next. Because 3 days later, the Albuquerque Journal published an exclusive feature. Architectural heir Elliot Montgomery to wed artist educator Lena Caldwell in private estate ceremony. Guest list includes regional leaders, curators, and national media figures. By noon, it had over 20,000 shares. And by 3 p.m., Riley messaged me again. "Riley, all caps, why is Jasper refusing to finalize our guest list? What did you tell him?" I didn't respond. I was sitting beside Elliot in the courtyard of Sagewind, helping arrange seating assignments. The sun was warm, the air smelled like cedar and lemon tea, and for the first time in weeks, I felt still. "Do you want her seated far from the press?" Elliot asked, half smiling. I looked up. "She's not invited." He didn't ask again. At the center of the guest list, a name had been circled in ink. Margaret Yates, editor-in-chief of Modern Woman. Riley had been trying to get featured in that magazine for 2 years. Margaret was coming to our wedding. I didn't gloat. I didn't scream. I simply stared at the name and whispered, "Let her find out the way I did in public." Elliot leaned over, kissed the top of my head, and murmured, "She will." And so the stage was set. One wedding built on love, the other on image. one with roots, the other only mirrors, and only one would survive what was coming next. I thought I'd be nervous, but the morning our names hit the press, I wasn't shaking. I wasn't crying. I was smiling. The sun was barely up, and already my phone buzzed nonstop. Calls, emails, messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Colleagues, former classmates, old professors, even students I once mentored who now ran their own studios. They all said the same thing. I didn't know. I'm proud of you. But the one person I didn't expect to hear from showed up at my door. Jasper. He looked different. Polished, yes, but quieter. Like someone who'd just stepped off a battlefield and hadn't quite realized the war was over. He handed me a small velvet box. I blinked. What's this? He looked around, made sure we were alone, then said, Insurance. Inside was a flash drive. My stomach turned. She doesn't know I kept it. She thought I deleted it after the engagement party. I didn't. What's on it? More than enough. He leaned closer, his voice barely audible. Voice memos, screenshots, recordings, her telling friends she bribed the gallery coordinator, her laughing that you'd cry later. She admitted she only moved the wedding up to erase you. I stared at him. She said the only way she could shine was if your light went out. I closed the box slowly. Why are you giving me this now? Because I'm done pretending. And maybe, he looked down, maybe I need to see her lose something for once. 2 days later, Riley posted her wedding trailer. Lavish shots, fake laughs, a dramatic slow-motion moment of her walking down an empty hall like she was starring in a perfume ad, and a caption that read, Can't wait to say I do to forever. May 20th, it's happening. It had 43,000 views in 6 hours. But at the same time, another video was circulating in private circles. It wasn't public. Not yet, but it was ready. Elliot had spent the past week working with a small AV team, friends from his architecture firm who owed him favors. They took the audio files, the text screenshots, the video clips Jasper provided, and turned them into a single, polished, devastating 6-minute reel. 6 minutes. That's all it would take to end her fantasy. We didn't tell anyone, not even my parents, because some things are more powerful when they hit without warning. That night, Elliot and I sat on the patio, watching the sun disappear behind the red hills. He held my hand but didn't say a word. And I realized something. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't shrinking. For the first time in my adult life, I was standing at full height, and the world would just have to adjust. The next morning, Riley messaged again. Riley, just saw the guest list on Southwest Society. How the hell did you get Margaret Yates? I didn't respond. Instead, I texted Elliot 2 words, play it. At 9:02 a.m., the video went live. Not on social media, not on YouTube, but on a secured RSVP-only page linked to our wedding invite. Anyone attending our wedding would see it. Everyone Riley had tried to impress, and they'd see it first. By noon, the fallout had begun. Riley's PR manager sent a frantic email to her sponsors. We were unaware of ongoing personal issues. Please pause public-facing collaborations until further notice. 3 brands pulled out. 2 more went silent. By 3 p.m., she called me. I didn't pick up. By 6 p.m., she called Elliot. He didn't even glance at the phone. At 10:17 p.m., she posted a cryptic story on Instagram. Some people will do anything for attention. Watch who you trust. But no one responded. Her likes were down 80%. Her comment section? Brutal. And this was just the beginning. Because May 20th was coming, and she had no idea what we had saved for the reception. The day began in silence. Not the anxious kind, not the hollow stillness that follows grief. This was clarity. The sky above Sagewind was cloudless. The early morning air was cool, the kind that wraps around your shoulders like a silk shawl. I watched from the bridal suite as black cars began lining the driveway, their engines low and discreet, windows tinted. Names I had only seen on book jackets or museum plaques stepped out into the light, brushing desert dust from expensive shoes. Margaret Yates arrived at 11:08 a.m. Aidan followed at 11:12. He didn't say a word when I met him at the hallway door, just handed me a final seating chart and nodded. "She's not on it," he said. I nodded back. "Good." The ceremony began exactly at 2 p.m., the same time Riley had claimed for herself. The string quartet played the piece Elliot composed for me, soft and soaring, full of little unresolved moments that melted into resolution just when you thought they wouldn't. As I walked down the aisle, I didn't feel nerves. I felt weightless. My dress was simple. Satin. No train. No veil. But I saw the way the crowd leaned forward, the way they watched, not just out of curiosity, but reverence. They weren't here for gossip. They were here for truth. When I reached Elliot, he didn't speak. He just took my hand like he'd done 100 times before, like I was already home. We said our vows beneath an arch of wild desert roses and olive branches, with the hills behind us holding their breath. When the officiant pronounced us married, the applause was warm, respectful, but it wasn't until the reception that the fire truly began. Elliot stepped up to give his toast, glass in hand. Tie loosened. The room had dimmed slightly with the dusk, casting everything in gold. "Thank you all for being here," he began. "Today isn't just about love. It's about truth, and standing up when someone tries to silence you." People turned toward him. Some exchanged looks. "My wife," he said, pausing to let the words settle, "had her wedding nearly stolen from her. The venue, the date, even her dignity. But instead of shrinking, she rose." He looked at me. I nodded once. Then he gestured to the AV team in the corner. "And today we'd like to share the full story." The lights dimmed. The screen behind us lit up. It started with Riley's voice, recorded on Jasper's phone, crystal clear. "She'll cancel. She always does. She's soft. That gallery is mine." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then came the screenshots, her text to the coordinator offering extra compensation to bump my reservation. Her message to Jasper, "This is my year. She can cry later." Murmurs. Disbelief. Then came the final clip. A hidden video, her laughing over dinner, makeup half done, wine glass in hand. If she really loved that guy, she'd step aside. He's just some artsy nobody. I'm the one with the real wedding. She's just background noise. When the lights came back on, no one spoke, until the applause started. Not polite, not reluctant. It was thunder, and that's when the doors slammed open. Riley stood at the back of the room, still in her designer gown, mascara streaked alone. She took 2 steps forward, saw the faces, heard the silence, and froze. Then came the final blow. Our mother stood up. "Talia!" she said, calling Riley by her middle name, the one only used when something was terribly wrong. "Enough. Leave." Riley's face crumpled. "What?" "You've embarrassed this family enough." "This isn't your day," she added, quieter but sharper. Riley didn't argue. She turned and walked out. The doors closed behind her. I exhaled. Slowly. It was done, but the echo would keep rippling, and she had no idea how far it would go. 3 days later, I received a letter. Not a text, not an email, a handwritten note, no return address. Inside was a single sentence. "This isn't over. You stole everything from me. Just wait." I folded the paper, placed it in a drawer, and closed it without another thought. Because by then, Riley had already lost everything that mattered to her. And I had already gained what she never understood. A life that didn't need her approval to mean something. The wind off the Arno was warm, like a hand brushing hair from my face. Elliot and I sat in a cafe tucked between 2 stone alleys in Florence. Our coffee cups were half empty, the sun catching in the edges of his glasses, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to brace myself for anything. There were no headlines waiting, no texts, no last-minute cancellations or demands to be the bigger person. Just quiet, just us. We spent 10 days wandering the city like we had nothing to prove. Mornings in the Uffizi, afternoons sketching doorways in forgotten courtyards, evenings drinking wine in silence, the kind of silence that wasn't awkward, just full. One night, as we watched the sunset from Piazzale Michelangelo, Elliot turned to me and said, "You look lighter." "I feel lighter," I replied, like I put something down I didn't even know I was carrying. That was the thing about being erased for so long. You didn't always notice the weight until it was gone. When we returned to Santa Fe, there was a letter waiting from the dean of my department. They'd seen the wedding coverage, seen the video, heard from donors and alumni. They wanted to offer me a new role, Director of Arts and Equity Initiatives, with funding to start a mentorship program for underrepresented student artists. I said yes, and something in me opened. The program started small, just 6 students, some first-generation college kids, one who had been told she wasn't commercial enough, another who'd been bullied for drawing abstract instead of realism. I saw pieces of myself in each of them, the parts that had been told to shrink, to soften, to step aside. I told them what no one ever told me. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You just have to be clear. And they listened. Meanwhile, Riley disappeared. Her Instagram went blank. No more brand deals. No more curated brunch tables or wedding countdown reels. Her management dropped her. Her sponsors pulled out. Even the skincare brand she was developing issued a quiet termination notice. According to a neighbor, she moved back in with our parents. I never confirmed it. I didn't need to, because for the first time in my life, her silence didn't feel like a threat. It felt like closure. A few weeks later, I ran into our mother at the co-op. She was bagging oranges, wearing sunglasses indoors. She didn't speak to me, just stood there, waiting for me to pass. I looked at her for a moment. The same woman who once said, "Don't make trouble, just be graceful." The same woman who told me to adjust, because Riley's wedding had more press. I didn't feel anger. Not anymore. I just felt sad for how small her world had become. And I walked on. Some nights, I still think about the moment it all turned. Not when Riley stole the venue. Not when Elliot revealed Sagewind. Not even when the video went live. It was the moment I said, "I'm done pretending." That's when everything began. That's when I stopped living for apologies I would never get and started living for myself. Riley tried to take everything from me, but in the end, she gave me what she never meant to, a reason to rise, a reason to claim my name again, a reason to choose myself, fully, unapologetically, permanently, and I'll never give that back.